Raftsmen talk. The river's earliest commerce was in great barges, keel boats, broadhorns. They floated and sailed from the upper rivers to New Orleans, changed cargoes there, and were tediously warped and pulled back by hand. A voyage down and back sometimes occupied 9 months. In the time, this commerce increased until it gave employment to hordes of rough and hardy men. Rude, uneducated, brave, suffering terrific hardships with a sailor-like stoicism, heavy drinkers, coarse frolickers, and moral stites like the Natchez under the hill of that day, heavy fighters, reckless fellows, everyone elephantinely jolly, foul-mouthed, profane, prodigal of their money, bankrupt at the end of the trip, fond of barbaric finery, prodigious braggarts, yet in the main honest, trustworthy, faithful to promises and duty, and often picturesquely magnanimous. By and by the steamboat intruded. Then, for 15 or 20 years, these men continued to run their keelboats downstream, and the steamers did all of the upstream business, and the keelboatsmen, selling their boats in New Orleans, returned home as deck passengers on steamers. But after a while, the steamboats so increased in number and in speed that they were able to absorb the entire commerce, and then keelboating died a permanent death. The keelboating became a deckhand and mate or pilot of a steamer, and when steam berths were not open to him, he took a berth on the Pittsburgh coal flat, or in that pipe raft constructed up in the forests towards the sources of the Mississippi. In the heyday of the steamboating prosperity, the river from end to end was flaked with coal fleets and timber rafts, all managed by hand, and employing hosts of the rough characters whom I have been trying to describe. I remember an annual progressions of nightly rafts that used to glide by Hannibal when I was a boy. An acre or so of white, sweet-smelling boards in each raft, a crew of 24 men or more, 3 or 4 wigwams scattered through the raft's vast level space for storm quarters, and I remember the rude waves and the tremendous talk of their big crews, the ex-keelboatsmen and their admiringly patterning successors, for we used to swim out a quarter of the mile and get on these rafts and have a ride. By way of illustrating keelboat talk and manners, and now the departed and hardy remembered raft life, I will throw in this place, a chapter from a book which I have been working at, by fits and starts, during the past 5 or 6 years, and may possibly finish in the course of 5 or 6 more. The book is a story which details some passages in the life of the ignorant village boy, Huck Finn, son of the town drunkard in my time out west there. He has run away from his persecuting father, and from a persecuting good widow who wishes to make a nice, tooth-telling, respectable boy from him, and with a slave of the widow's has also escaped. They have found a fragment of lumber raft, it is high water in dead summertime, and are floating down the river by night and hiding in the willows by day, bound for Cairo, whence the Negro will seek freedom in the heart of the free states. But in a fog they pass Cairo without knowing it, and by they begin to suspect the truth, and Huck Finn is persuaded to end the dismal suspense by swimming down to a huge raft which they have seen in the distance ahead of them, and creeping aboard under cover of darkness and gathering the needed information by eavesdropping. There was 13 men there, while they was watching the deck, of course, and mighty rough-looking lot, too. They had a jug and 10 cups, and they kept the jug moving. One man was singing, roaring, you may say, and it wasn't a nice song, for a parlor anyway. Roaring through his nose and strung out his last words in every line, well, very long. When he was done, they kind of fetched in the engine war whoop, and then another would sing, and it begun. There was a woman in our town, and the town did dwell. She loved her husband dearly, but another man twisted said, well, singing to relay. She loved her husband dearly, but another man twisted away. And so on, 14 verses. It was kind of poor, and when he was doing the start to the next verse, one of them said it was a tune an old cow died on, and another one said, oh, give it a rest. And another one told him to take a walk. They made fun of him till he got mad and jumped up and began to cuss the crowd, as he wouldn't lay any thief in the lot. They was all about to make a break for him, but the biggest man there jumped up and says, So where you are, gentlemen. Leave him be. He's my mate. Then he jumped up in the air 3 times and cracked his heels together every time. He flung off a buckskin coat that was all hung up with fringes and said, "You lay there till and the chipmun's done," and flung his hat down, which was all over ribbons, and says, "You lay there till the suffering is over." Then he jumped up in the air and cracked his heels together again and shouted out, "Whoop! I'm an old original iron-jawed, brass-mounted, copper-bellied corpse-maker with the wilds of Arkansas. Look at me, I'm the man they call sudden death and general desolation. Sired by a hurricane, damned by an earthquake, and half-brother to the cholera. Nearly related to smallpox on my mother's side. Look at me! I take 19 alligators and a barrel of whiskey for breakfast, and when I'm in most robust health, and a bushel of rattlesnakes and a dead body when I'm ailing. I spit the everlasting rocks with my glance, and I squelch the thunder when I speak. Whoop! Stand back and give me room according to my strength. Blood's my natural drink, and the walls of the dying is my music to my ears. Cast your eye on me, gentlemen, and lay low and hold your breath, for I'm about to turn myself loose." All the time he was getting this off, he was shaking his head and looking fierce and kind of swelling around in a little circle, tucking up his wristbands and now and then straightening up and beating his breast with his fist, saying, "Look at me, gentlemen." When he got through, he jumped up and cracked his heels together 3 times and let off a roar and whoop! "I'm the bloodiest son of a wild cat that lives." Then the man that started the row tilted his old slouch hat down over his right eye, and then he bent stooping forward with his back sagged and his south end sticking out far, and his fists shoving out and drawing in front of him. So he went around in a little circle about 3 times, swelling himself up and breathing hard. Then he straightened and jumped up and cracked his heels together 3 times before he lit again. That made them cheer. And he began to shout like this. "Whoop! Bow your neck and spread, for the kingdom of sorrows a comin'. Hold me down to earth, for I feel my powers are workin'. Woo! I'm a child of sin, don't let me get a start. Smelt glass here for all. Don't attempt to look at me with a naked eye, gentlemen. When I'm playful, I use meridians of longitude and parallels of latitude for a scene, and drag the Atlantic Ocean for whales. I scratch my head with lightning and purr myself to sleep with thunder. When I'm cold, I boil the Gulf of Mexico and bathe in it. When I'm thirsty, I reach up and suck a cloud dry like a sponge. When I'm hot, I fan myself in an equatorial storm. When I rage, the earth hungry, famine follows my tracks. Whoa, bow your neck and spread. I put my hand on the sun's face and make it night on earth. I bite a piece out of the moon and hurry the season. I shake myself and crumble the mountains. Contemplate with through leather and don't use the naked eye. I'm the man with a petrified heart and bitter iron bowels. The massacre of isolated communities is my pastime of my idle moments. The destruction of nationalities is the serious business of my life. Boundless vastness of the great American desert is my enclosed property, and I bury my head on my own premises." He jumped up and cracked his heels together 3 more times before he lit. They cheered him again. And as he come down, he shouted out, "Woo-whoop! Bow your neck and spread, for the pet child of calamity's a-comin'." Then one of the other went to swelling around and blowing again, and the first one, that they called Bob. Next, the child of calamity chipped in again, bigger than ever. Then they both got in at the same time, swelling round and round each other and punching their fists most in each other's faces, and whooping and jawing like Injuns. Then Bob called the child names, and the child called names back. Then Bob called him a heap rougher names, and the child came back with him in the worst kind of language. Next, Bob knocked the child's hat off, and the child picked it up and kicked Bob's ribbon he had about 6 foot. Bob went and got it and said, never mind, this weren't going to be the last of the thing, because he was a man that never forgot and never forgave, and so the child better look out, for there was a time a-coming, just as sure as he was a living man, and he would have an answer to him with the best blood in his body. The child said no man was willinger than he for that time to come, and he would give Bob fair warning now never to cross his path again, for he could never rest till he had wired it in his blood. So much for his nature, though he was sparing him now on account of his family, if he had one. Both of them was edging their way in different directions, growling and shaking their heads and going on about what they was going to do, but the little black-whiskered chap skipped up and says, Come back here, you couple of chicken-livered cowards, and I'll thrash the two of you. And he done it, too. He snatched them and jerked them this way and that and booted them around and knocked them sprawling faster than they could get up. Why, it weren't 2 minutes till he begged the dogs, and how the other lot they'd yell and laugh and clap at the hands of the way through and shout, "Sail in, corpse maker! Ah, him again, child of calamity! Boy for you, little Davy!" Well, it was a perfect powwow for a while. Bob and the child had red noses and black eyes when they got through. Little Davy made them up all the way his own cowards and sneaks and not fit to eat with a dog or drink with a nigger. And then Bob and the child shook hands with each other, very solemn, and said they had always respected each other and was willing to let bygones be bygones. So they washed their faces in the river, and then they was down in a loud order and stand for a crossing, and some of them went forward to man the sweeps there, and the rest went aft to handle the after sweeps.